He signed the divorce papers with a smug, satisfied smile, absolutely certain he was cutting loose a dull, unremarkable housewife who had become a burden on his climb to fame. In Richard Dalton's mind, he had won everything: the house, the car, the narrative, the power. He walked out of that courtroom with his mistress on his arm, laughing as if he had just escaped dead weight and left his ex-wife with nothing except a cheap tote bag and the clothes on her back. What Richard did not understand, what never once crossed his arrogant mind, was that the quiet woman he had discarded was never helpless, never ordinary, and certainly never broke. She had only been hidden. And 3 months later, when he stepped into the most exclusive gala in the city, expecting to chase a life-changing deal, he would come face to face with a truth so devastating it would make the divorce itself feel merciful. Because the woman he thought he had destroyed had not lost her place in the world. She had simply stepped back into it. And when Richard finally learned who Olivia really was, regret would be the kindest thing he felt. Rain lashed the floor-to-ceiling windows of Holloway and Associates, turning the Seattle skyline outside into a blurred wash of steel, silver, and smoke. Inside the conference room, the cold was clinical. The air carried the scent of expensive cologne and lemonwood polish, and everything about the room felt designed to intimidate. Olivia sat quietly on one side of the long mahogany table. She wore a faded beige cardigan and had her brown hair tied back into a practical, messy bun. In the oversized leather chair, she looked almost fragile, hands neatly folded in her lap, posture small, expression composed. Across from her sat Richard "Rick" Dalton, polished and self-important in a tailored navy suit that screamed recent money. A Rolex gleamed on his wrist beneath the white fluorescent lights, and his mouth wore the kind of smile reserved for people who believed the world existed to admire them. Beside him lounged Jessica, younger than Olivia by nearly a decade, dressed to be noticed, barely looking up from her phone as she snapped her gum with bored contempt. "Let's get this over with, Olivia," Rick said, sliding the stack of documents across the table as though he were pushing aside an inconvenience. "I've got a merger meeting at 3. Real business. Big opportunities. You wouldn't understand." Olivia lowered her gaze to the paperwork. "The alimony agreement," she said softly. Her tone did not shake. That alone irritated him. Rick leaned back, one arm draped over Jessica's chair with theatrical ease. "I'm being more than fair. You keep the Honda, and I'm giving you $10,000. That should be enough to survive a few months while you figure out what exactly it is you do." Olivia lifted her eyes. "What I do?" Jessica snorted without bothering to raise her head. "What, baking cookies? Reading paperback novels? Rick said you were basically a live-in maid who forgot the live-in part didn't make you valuable." Rick laughed, indulgent and cruel. "Jessica, come on, be nice. Olivia tried. She just doesn't have vision. You know how it is, Liv. Dalton Tech is evolving. We're entering a different league now. I need someone beside me who matches the brand. Someone who belongs in photographs, on carpets, at investor dinners. Not someone who still thinks clipping coupons is a financial strategy." He tapped a gold fountain pen against the table and smiled like a man explaining reality to a child. "You were fine for the early years, for the struggle, for the garage phase. But I've outgrown all that. I've outgrown you. It isn't personal. It's business." But it was personal. And worse, it was a lie. Olivia had not merely stood beside him during the difficult years. She had quietly carried him through them. When Rick had been an unknown coder with nothing but borrowed ambition and unpaid bills, it was Olivia's freelance income that covered server costs and utilities.
It was Olivia who sat awake until 4 in the morning fixing code he broke and letting him believe he had solved the problem himself. It was Olivia who made herself smaller every day so he could keep mistaking her restraint for inferiority. "I understand," Olivia said at last. She picked up the pen. "So just so we're clear, Richard, this is a complete severance. No ongoing support beyond this amount. No future claim from me against your assets. And no future claim from you against mine." Rick burst into a harsh laugh. "Your future assets? Olivia, unless the universe suddenly drops a lottery ticket in your lap, I think I'm safe. Yes, a full separation. What's mine stays mine. What's yours, which is nothing, stays yours. Sign it." Mr. Holloway, Rick's attorney, angled a manicured finger toward the signature line. Olivia did not hesitate. She signed once, then paused. "May I use my maiden name?" she asked calmly. "Since the divorce takes effect immediately?" Rick waved dismissively. "Use whatever you want. Just finish." Without the slightest tremor, Olivia drew a clean line through Dalton and wrote in elegant, deliberate script, "Olivia Sterling." Rick didn't even notice. The second her pen left the page, he snatched the papers away as if afraid she might change her mind. "Done. Finally."
He rose and buttoned his jacket. "Good luck, Olivia. Honestly. Maybe find something simple. A cashier job, maybe. Quiet work for a quiet woman." Jessica stood too, smoothing her dress with a smirk. She leaned over the table, lowering her voice only enough to make the insult intimate, not private. "Don't worry, sweetie. I'll take good care of your house. I'm thinking of turning your sewing room into a walk-in closet." Olivia stood and took her old canvas tote from the chair. She did not cry. She did not yell. She did not give either of them the collapse they were hoping to enjoy. "You should absolutely do that, Jessica," she said evenly, though her voice dropped lower now, stronger somehow, stripped of the meek softness Rick had grown used to. "But you may want to repair the foundation first. That house has always had structural cracks. Rather like Richard." And then she walked out. She did not look back. She did not slow down. She crossed the marble hallway and stepped into the elevator, and the instant the doors closed, the woman they thought they knew disappeared. Her shoulders straightened, her chin lifted. The defeated wife was gone, replaced by someone composed, commanding, utterly self-possessed. From her worn tote, she pulled not the battered phone Rick believed she used, but a sleek black satellite device built like military hardware. She dialed once. "It's done," she said. A deep male voice answered immediately. "Congratulations, Madam Sterling. The board has been waiting. The Kincaid acquisition is ready for your approval. Shall I bring the car around?" "Yes, Arthur. Around the corner. I don't want them to see the phantom." "Of course. Welcome back, CEO Sterling." 3 months later, Rick Dalton was unraveling. Dalton Tech, the company he bragged about at cocktail bars and on podcast interviews, was bleeding cash from every seam. He had promised investors a breakthrough partnership with Aurora Global, the elusive international conglomerate that owned ports, hotels, shipping networks, data centers, and enough influence to make governments nervous. But Aurora Global would not answer him. His emails were ignored. His calls were screened. His proposals vanished into silence. "Why won't they respond?" Rick shouted, slamming his fist against his glass desk hard enough to rattle a crystal award. "This makes no sense!"
Jessica lounged on the office sofa, filing her nails as if bankruptcy were mildly inconvenient background noise. Maybe they're busy, Ricky. You should take me to lunch. I saw a bracelet at Tiffany that would really improve my mood. I can't buy you lunch, Jess. He tugged at his tie, sweat gathering at his temples.
If we don't land Aura, we may not make payroll next month. Timothy, his assistant, appeared nervously in the doorway. Mr. Dalton, an invitation arrived. Not now. It's from Aurora Global, sir. Rick went still. He crossed the room in 2 steps and tore the envelope from Timothy's hand. Heavy cream stock, gold leaf embossing. Exclusive, expensive, important. You are cordially invited to the Winter Solstice Charity Gala, hosted by the Sterling Foundation and Aurora Global. Venue, Grand Olympus Hall. Black tie required. His pulse jumped. This is it, he whispered. This is my way in. The Sterling Foundation is connected to Aura. The whole board will be there. Maybe even the architect. Jessica sat upright at once. A gala? Press, investors, politicians, CEOs, everyone. If I get in front of the right people, Dalton Tech survives. He read the invitation again, frowning. Sterling Foundation. Why does that sound familiar? Jessica shrugged. Because sterling means money. Stop thinking. I need a dress. He ignored the flicker of discomfort in the back of his mind. He was too hungry to question luck when it finally knocked. Across the city, high above the clouds in a glass-wrapped penthouse overlooking Seattle, Olivia stood before a mirror and fastened a diamond earring that cost more than the home Rick had forced her out of. The woman reflected there was unrecognizable from the one who had sat in that law office wearing beige. Her hair fell in glossy chestnut waves. Her skin glowed. Her bearing was graceful and exact. She wore a custom midnight blue velvet gown that fit like a secret finally spoken aloud, the neckline dusted with diamonds that caught the light like fallen constellations. Arthur stood near the door, immaculate in a dark suit, silver at the temples, a scar along his cheek giving him the dangerous dignity of a man who had survived many lives. The guest list is confirmed, madam. Mr. Dalton has RSVP'd. Miss Vane will accompany him. Excellent, Olivia said. The security team has been briefed. He is to be admitted but watched. He is desperate. His finances are in free fall. He took out a predatory loan to lease a Ferrari for tonight. Olivia's smile was cold and fleeting. He always did mistake packaging for substance. He believes he is attending a networking event. Olivia turned from the mirror. Her eyes were sharp enough to cut glass. No, Arthur. He's attending a trial. The only difference is that this time, I am the bench, the jury, and the verdict. Arthur inclined his head. The board is eager to receive you. For 5 years you've run Aurora Global from the shadows. You kept your identity hidden so your husband wouldn't feel threatened by your wealth. I did more than hide it, Olivia said quietly. I shrank myself for him. I dimmed every part of me he couldn't tolerate. I made his meals, washed his shirts, listened to him explain economics to me while I managed a $1 billion portfolio from my bathroom between pretending to fold towels. Her mouth hardened. Tonight, the lights come back on. Grand Olympus Hall glittered like a kingdom. Paparazzi crowded behind velvet ropes. Strings played from a suspended orchestra platform. Ice swans towered above tables, silver candelabras blazed beneath chandeliers, and the richest people in the country drifted through the ballroom like they owned gravity itself. Rick stepped out of the leased Ferrari in a tuxedo he could not afford and felt magnificent. Jessica emerged beside him in sequins that sparkled too loudly for the room, but he barely noticed. "Look around," he murmured, intoxicated by the spectacle. "That's the Amazon CEO. There's the governor. Smile, Jess. We belong here." At the entrance, a stern woman with a tablet checked his name. "Dalton, Richard and Guest," he said smoothly. She paused for a beat, then nodded. "Yes, Mr. Dalton. You're assigned to table 4. Rick's chest swelled. "Table 4, he whispered as they entered. "Single digits, near the front. That means respect." It did not. Tables 1, 2, and 3 sat at the center of the ballroom, facing the stage like thrones. Table 4 was tucked deep in the back corner near the swinging kitchen doors, half-shadowed and insultingly small, with a generic candle and no centerpiece. Jessica's face twisted. "What is this? Why are we seated beside the staff entrance?" "There has to be some mistake." Rick grabbed a passing waiter. "I'm Richard Dalton, CEO of Dalton Tech. I should be closer to the front." The waiter checked his device. "No mistake, sir. Table 4. Those were the instructions." Rick sat down, cheeks burning. "It's a test," he muttered. "Humility. These elite people love games." Then the lights dimmed. A single spotlight poured onto the stage. Conversation died at once. David Sterling, Aurora Global's head of operations and one of the most photographed executives in the business world, walked to the microphone. Rick leaned forward. "For years," David said, his voice rich and steady, "the world has speculated about the identity of the person behind Aurora Global. You know the strategy. You know the outcomes. You know the reach. But until tonight, you have never seen the face of the one we call the architect." Rick grinned. "This is it." "Tonight," David continued, "that changes. Please join me in welcoming the President and Chief Executive Officer of Aurora Global, my sister, Olivia Sterling." The velvet curtains drew back. Rick's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. He did not hear it. He did not hear Jessica gasp, or the orchestra swelling, or the room erupting. He only saw her. Olivia. His ex-wife. His boring wife. His coupon-clipping housewife. The woman he had mocked for seeming too plain to fit the life he wanted. She emerged into the light like she had been born from it, poised, breathtaking, every movement effortless. Every eye in the room pulled toward her as if by force. She stepped to the microphone, scanned the crowd, and found him instantly there in the back corner near the kitchen, exactly where she had placed him. Then she smiled. And for the first time in his life, Richard Dalton felt small in a way no money, no title, no suit could disguise. The applause rolled through the hall like thunder, but Rick stood inside a private silence of shock. Jessica clutched his sleeve. "Rick, that's not Olivia. It can't be. Maybe she has a twin, a richer twin. That woman has presence." He could not answer. Olivia lifted a hand and the room quieted at once. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was velvet wrapped around steel. Gone was the timid hesitation Rick had always mistaken for weakness. For years, Aurora Global preferred anonymity. We believed power did not need a face. But times change, and so must institutions. She paused. "For the last 5 years, I have conducted an experiment, a personal one. I wanted to understand what remained of human decency when status was removed. I wanted to see how people behave when they believe you have nothing. No influence, no leverage,
No visible worth. Just a name on paper. A wife in the background. A quiet woman no one bothers to notice. Uneasy laughter moved through the room. I learned a great deal, Olivia continued. I learned that loyalty is rarer than success. I learned that some people build their dreams on the labor of others and never once ask whose shoulders they are standing on. They see someone kneeling and assume submission. It never occurs to them that perhaps the giant beneath them has only bent down to tie a shoe. Now the laughter disappeared. Rick's skin went cold. And now, Olivia said, voice dropping lower, the kneeling is over. The room exploded in applause again, louder this time, but Rick barely heard it. He was thinking only one thing. I have to speak to her. Not because he was ashamed. Not yet. Men like Rick did not leap first to remorse. They reached for leverage, opportunity, escape. He pushed through the crowd with desperate focus, while senators, founders, and heirs all surged forward to greet Olivia. He made it to the velvet divider separating the premium section from the general floor and was stopped by a massive security guard. I need to get through, Rick said, arranging his face into executive confidence. I'm family. That's my ex-wife. She'll want to see me. Name? Richard Dalton, CEO of Dalton Tech. The guard listened to his earpiece for a moment, then looked back at him without emotion. Denied. Rick laughed uncertainly. No, ask again. Tell her it's Rick. The message was specific, sir. Ms. Sterling said, and I quote, "The help stays in the back. Please return to table 4 or you'll be escorted out." The people nearby heard it. Several smiled. One woman actually laughed into her glass. Rick felt heat roar through him. She had taken his own words, sharpened them, and handed them back like a blade. An hour later, burning with humiliation and disbelief, he saw his chance. Olivia slipped from the ballroom toward the private executive corridor, Arthur a few steps ahead. Rick ducked beneath a rope barrier and hurried after her. Olivia! She stopped slowly and turned. No surprise, no fear, just calm acknowledgement, as though she had expected the interruption all along. Arthur moved at once, but Olivia raised a hand to stop him. It's all right, she said. I knew he'd come. Rick approached, breathing hard. Up close, the transformation was even more brutal. She looked expensive, powerful, untouchable. She smelled faintly of jasmine and winter air. She looked like every door in the world would open for her and close on him. What is this? He demanded. Some kind of sick game? Good evening, Richard, she replied. You're in a restricted area. The public restrooms are in the lobby. Drop the act. There is no act anymore. He stepped closer, fury flaring because it was easier than panic. You lied to me for 5 years. You pretended to be nobody. You let me pay bills. You let me stress about money while you were sitting on a fortune. That's fraud. Olivia laughed once, incredulous. Fraud? I paid off your student loans in 2021. I funded your first startup through Blue Heron Ventures when no legitimate investor would go near you. I shielded you from every consequence you were too mediocre to survive. Rick stared at her. You were Blue Heron? I wanted a partner, she said, not a parasite. My father warned me. He said power terrifies insecure men. So I hid mine. I wanted to know whether someone could love me without kneeling before money. Her eyes hardened. You answered that question. I did love you, Rick said quickly, and even he heard the lie limp halfway out of him. No, Olivia said. You loved being admired. You loved having someone who made your life easier while expecting nothing.
You loved being the sun in a house someone else paid to heat. He tried another tactic. Jessica supports me. Jessica is an expense, Olivia said. A decorative line item with delusions. Her expression chilled further. You signed the divorce agreement, Richard. Section 8, paragraph 3. Both parties waive any future claim to assets undisclosed before or during the marriage. You waived discovery. You waived challenge. You waived rights you didn't bother to read. His stomach dropped. I didn't read all of it. I know, she said softly. You were distracted. He took a step back. I can still fight this. I can go public. Tell people you deceived your husband. Please do. The media adores a story about a woman surviving a vain, ungrateful man who mistook her restraint for dependence. Vanity Fair is photographing me next week. The headline is already in development. You won't be the hero in it, Richard. At best, you'll be a cautionary anecdote. He swallowed hard. I have a meeting with Aura next week. Olivia looked amused. Do you? Yes. My tech speaks for itself. Her pity was worse than her anger. I am the board, she said. But by all means, come. I do enjoy a live comedy. She turned slightly. Arthur, please remove him. If necessary, break the left wrist. He'll need the right one for the bankruptcy filings. Rick fled before Arthur could take a single step. By Monday morning, he was standing in the glass lobby of Aurora Global, trying to stitch confidence together out of fear. The receptionist sent him to conference room A on the 3rd floor. Not the penthouse, not the executive boardroom. Hope stirred. Maybe Olivia wouldn't be involved, but when he entered the room, there she was, alone. Seated at the far end of the long table with a cup of tea and an iPad, dressed in a white suit tailored with the severity of judgment itself. Sit, she said. He obeyed. Where is everyone else? He asked weakly. You're looking at everyone who matters, Richard. He set up his laptop with trembling hands. The projector flickered alive. Dalton Tech has developed a proprietary supply chain optimization algorithm we call Nexus, he began. It reduces latency by 14% and it's outdated, Olivia said. He froze. She tapped her screen. Behind him, the projection changed to a side-by-side code comparison. This is your Nexus. This is Aura's Project Hermes, completed 6 months ago. Our system reduces latency by 40%. Yours relies on vulnerable open-source architecture and patchwork shortcuts. How did you get my code? You used the home network, she said. A network I built. You were never as private as you imagined. His shoulders sagged. So you're not interested? Olivia stood and walked toward him with deliberate calm. Interested? Richard, I did not bring you here to buy Dalton Tech. Dalton Tech has no value. Your product is derivative. Your leadership is unstable. Your company is smoke wearing a blazer. Then why am I here? She dropped a thick folder onto the table. Because I own your debt. He blinked. What? The predatory loan for the Ferrari. The bridge financing to cover payroll. The emergency capital you begged for through Centurion. Centurion Capital is an Aura subsidiary. His fingers shook as he opened the file. Numbers, default clauses, cross-collateralization, personal guarantees, assets exposed everywhere. You are in default as of this morning, Olivia said pleasantly. I have called in the loan. I can't pay this. It's $3 million. I'm aware. I put up company assets. And your personal assets, she corrected. Apartment, vehicle, intellectual property rights. Again, Richard, the fine print. He stared at her in horror. You're taking my company. I'm taking everything, she said. I'm liquidating Dalton Tech. I'll retain the competent employees. Timothy will be fine. You, however, are finished. You can't do this. I was your husband. And I was your disposable wife, she snapped, and for the first time her anger flashed openly. I was the woman you dismissed, mocked, replaced, and stripped for your convenience. You wanted the big leagues. Welcome to them. In this world, when debts come due, they are paid. She pressed the intercom. Security. Guards entered almost immediately. As they took him by the arms, he broke completely. Olivia, please, we can fix this. I'll come back. I still love you. She did not even blink. Arthur, she said into the silence after he was dragged out. Arthur stepped through a side door. Yes, madam? Send movers to his apartment. Change the locks before noon. Tell Jessica she has 1 hour to clear out. If she leaves anything behind, donate it. She paused. No. Burn it. And still, even then, it wasn't over. At a decaying roadside motel on the edge of the city, Rick sat in a dingy room that smelled like mildew, cigarettes, and failure. Jessica paced like a trapped animal, shoving clothes into a suitcase with furious, jerking motions. This is insane, she shouted. No hot water? No room service? The carpet is sticky. Do you understand that my followers think I'm in Bali? It's temporary, Rick muttered. I just need access to a few things. I'll recover. Jessica spun toward him. You have nothing left, which means I have nothing left. She yanked the suitcase upright and reached for the door, but then stopped. Something changed in her face. Calculation replaced disgust. Slowly, she turned back. You're right about one thing, she said, walking toward him. Olivia is untouchable right now. Everyone worships her, which means her reputation is the only place she can still bleed. Rick looked up. What if the world finds out their saintly billionaire is actually a manipulative abuser? What if the great Olivia Sterling stole your code and built her empire on your mind? He frowned. But none of that is true. Jessica smiled. Truth is only important when no one is listening. Right now, we don't need truth. We need noise. And because Rick was a coward before he was anything else, the idea comforted him. By Wednesday, they were sitting in a dark diner booth with Gavin Reed from the Daily Inquisitor, a hungry little man who smelled scandal the way sharks smell blood. Rick gave a trembling performance worthy of an award he would never receive. She isolated me, he said, tracked me, controlled me. Project Hermes was mine. She stole it from my laptop. Jessica squeezed his hand with practiced devotion. He was terrified to leave. I thought she might kill him. Gavin's pen moved feverishly. This is explosive. When do we go public? Friday night, he said. During her Women in Tech summit. We hit her during the live broadcast. By Friday, the auditorium was full. 3,000 people in the room. Millions on stream. Silver lights, giant screens, Aura branding everywhere. Olivia stood backstage in a crimson silk suit that made her look less like a CEO and more like the embodiment of consequence. Arthur stepped near. It's confirmed. Gavin Reed is in the third row. Dalton and Vane are in a studio downtown preparing to go live. We could stop it, Arthur murmured. Shut the feed. Injunctions. Legal pressure. Olivia adjusted her cuff. No. If you silence a liar, people assume he had something dangerous to say. I want him to speak. I want the whole world to hear him. Then she walked onto the stage and delivered a speech so poised, intelligent, and sincere that the room hung on every word. She spoke about ethics, transparency, leadership, and the cost of telling the truth in a world that rewards spectacle. And then came the Q&A. Gavin jumped to his feet before being called. Miss Sterling, he barked into the microphone. How can you speak about ethics when your entire empire may be built on stolen code? Isn't it true you abused your ex-husband, Richard Dalton, and stole his intellectual property to create Aurora Global? The room jolted. Behind Olivia, the main screen switched to a live feed. Rick and Jessica appeared in a studio, trying their best to look devastated and brave. She ruined me, Rick said, eyes wet with fake pain. She stole my work. She stole my future. Phones came out across the audience. Whispers spread. Markets reacted. Olivia stood perfectly still and let the clip finish. Then she laughed. Not defensively, not bitterly, genuinely. She lifted a small remote. Mr. Reed, she said. Thank you. I was hoping this would come up. One click. Rick's live feed vanished. In its place appeared grainy black and white footage from 5 years earlier. A younger Rick sat at a desk, headset on, swearing at a crashing system. Olivia, come fix this! I can't get it to work! On screen, Olivia entered wearing that same old beige cardigan. She sat, scanned the code, and began typing rapidly. It's a syntax problem in the root layer, Video Olivia said. You need recursion here. Watch. Then Rick's voice. Fine, whatever. Just keep my name in the comments. Investors don't need to know my wife did the actual work. The audience gasped. Olivia clicked again. Now the screen showed motel security footage from only days before. Rick and Jessica were seated on the bed. What happens if the world finds out the Saint of Seattle is actually unstable and abusive? Jessica said. But that's not true, Rick replied. It doesn't need to be true, Ricky. It just needs to be loud. The silence that fell after that was total and brutal. Gavin Reed went white. Olivia stepped forward to the edge of the stage. Richard forgot one detail. The Sunset Motel was acquired 6 months ago by an Aura subsidiary. We planned to replace it with a community center. Security systems were active, and squatters who never paid their bill do not get to lecture me about ethics. She looked directly into the nearest camera, every syllable precise. Checkmate, Richard. Across town, in the studio, the feed collapsed into chaos. The producer cursed. Jessica recoiled. Rick's face drained of all color, just as his phone began to ring. It was the police. Extortion, defamation, fraud, false reporting, conspiracy. Olivia's voice continued from the studio monitor. My legal team has forwarded everything to the district attorney. Officers should be arriving about now. The doors burst open. Jessica did what Jessica always did when the ship began to sink. She pointed at Rick. He forced me! I was terrified! He made me lie! Rick stared at her in disbelief as handcuffs snapped around his wrists.
And on the screen, Olivia stood before a roaring crowd, receiving a standing ovation. That was the moment it finally reached him. Not during the gala, not during the loan call, not even during the public humiliation. In that moment, with police gripping his arms and the woman he thought he had defeated rising higher than ever in front of the whole world, Rick understood what he had always been. Not the mastermind, not the hero, not even the rival. Just a pawn who mistook proximity to power for possession of it. 6 months later, winter cut through Seattle with merciless precision. Inside a crowded downtown coffee shop, Rick Dalton wiped his hands on a stained apron and called out drink orders over the noise of the lunch rush. His face looked older, sharper, diminished. His hair had thinned. His jaw sagged with exhaustion. He lived in a cramped apartment shared with college kids who blasted music until dawn. His paycheck was being garnished to cover legal penalties and civil damages that would follow him for most of his life. Jessica was gone. Last he heard, she had testified for leniency and attached herself to an elderly real estate tycoon in Florida. Survival, for Jessica, had always been romanticized opportunism. "1 caramel macchiato, extra foam," a customer snapped. "Coming right up," Rick muttered. The bell over the shop door rang. For some reason, the noise in the cafe softened. Rick looked up. Olivia had entered.
She wore a camel hair coat and dark sunglasses, flanked by discreet security. But it was not her wealth that struck him. It was her peace. Beside her stood a tall man with kind eyes and a surgeon's posture. Alexander, a neurospecialist who directed the pediatric wing of a hospital funded by the Sterling Foundation. He held her hand with quiet steadiness, not as a trophy, but as something genuinely cherished. Rick froze. She approached the counter, removed her sunglasses, looked at the menu. Then her gaze drifted to him. Their eyes met. For one suspended second, all his shame rushed upward like floodwater. He expected satisfaction, recognition, cruel irony, a smirk, a sentence sharp enough to finish what life had already started. But Olivia gave him none of it. She looked at him with the distant politeness reserved for strangers in service roles. Whatever history had once existed between them no longer lived in her expression. She did not see the ex-husband who betrayed her. She did not see the man who humiliated her. She did not even see an enemy. She saw a barista. "2 black coffees, please," she said gently. "Olivia," he whispered, barely audible. If she heard him, she gave no sign. Instead, she turned to Alexander, smiling at something he said. It was not the hard smile of victory. It was softer than that, realer. The smile of a woman who had survived humiliation, reclaimed herself, and found something richer than revenge. Rick made the coffees with trembling hands and set them down. "Have a nice day," he managed. "Thank you," Olivia said. Then she dropped a 20 into the tip jar. "Keep the change." And just like that, she was gone again, stepping out into the cold toward the waiting black car, toward the life that had always belonged to her, toward a future so vast and bright that Richard Dalton no longer occupied enough space in it to cast even the smallest shadow. He stared at the bill in the jar. It was more than he earned in an hour. It was not forgiveness. It was not cruelty. It was something worse. It was irrelevance. From the back, his manager shouted, "Rick, table 4 needs wiping down." Rick closed his eyes for half a second, then grabbed the rag. "On it." He walked to table 4 and began to scrub. And that was the final judgment. Not prison, not poverty, not scandal. Those were only consequences. The true punishment was smaller and colder than all of them. He had spent his life chasing status, applause, image, and domination, only to end as background noise in the life of the woman he once believed he had reduced to nothing. Olivia did not destroy him. He did that himself, one act of arrogance at a time. She simply stepped aside and let him fall under the weight of what he really was. And in the end, the most brutal revenge was not that she remembered everything. It was that she no longer needed to remember him at all.